Big news, the Raccoon O365 arrests, but everyone is trying to figure out if they got the right guys. The names on the Nigerian arrests didn't match the name Microsoft filed in the US federal court documents. Those documents were filed back in September when Microsoft seized hundreds of domains belonging to Raccoon customers as well as some Raccoon infrastructure. Very nice. Cloudflare thought there was a Russian component based on this name, Cookie God, but that's a mistranslation. Russians use a word that's like the Western name for browser cookies, and this word means baked goods. Russians aren't going to call themselves that unless they're after a very different kind of dough. And also, Raccoon is still logged in.
These different names, countries, what's going on here?
We don't know the whole story yet, but today on Behind the Surface, we're going to dig into the product that Raccoon was working on and never made it to market, the Browser-in-the-Browser phishing kit.
Behind the surface, follow the chain from initial access to lasting pain.
Welcome to Behind the Surface. Here, we deep dive into the real tactics and techniques driving today's cyber attacks. Every episode breaks down what threat actors are currently doing, translating their underground methods into clear, analyst-friendly insights. Whether you're a defender, a researcher, or just curious about how modern attacks actually work, this channel is built to give you the visibility and vocabulary you might not find in glossy reports. For the last year, if you were a low-skill cyber criminal wanting to steal Office 365 credentials, you may have bought a subscription to Raccoon O365. It was like the McDonald's of phishing. Easy, cheap, everywhere. Also, not a great architecture. It had some very centralized components. But as of late 2025, the Raccoon is in a cage. Raccoon left a vacuum in the market. They were testing a new browser-in-the-browser feature before they got hit, but they never made it to market. The kit would have been a convergence of two phishing methodologies, the front-end deception of browser-in-the-browser and the back-end efficacy of adversary-in-the-middle. But as someone famously said, the market abhors a vacuum. I think that was Aristotle's landlord.
Your debt is long overdue. I will not ask again.
Must you constantly...
An established phishing-as-a-service platform called Sneaky2FA has picked up that torch and incorporated that feature into their platform. We've been seeing it in the wild, and it's honestly kind of cool. With normal adversary-in-the-middle phishing kits, the kit is hosted on a server using the attacker's domain. That address bar is a dead giveaway, so that is one of the primary red flags we train users to look for when identifying phishing sites. The browser-in-the-browser technique is an attempt to solve this URL problem. The entire browser window they're looking at in this attack is essentially a graphic inside a real browser window. So the attackers can make that graphic look however they want, put any URL they want, any logo they want. You can even drag the window around when you're interacting with these kits inside the real window. If you try to drag the fake browser window outside the real browser window, though, it won't work.
Dead giveaway for a browser-in-the-browser attack.
To be clear, browser-in-the-browser isn't a new idea. The brilliant Mr. Docs proved this concept a few years ago. The browser-in-the-browser attack is tied to the earlier attack known as clickjacking. Remember Frame, popular in early websites?
Haven't seen Netscape since I was just a bike lock.
Attackers discovered that you could load a malicious site, and within a frame in that site, you could have a legitimate website. Then you can use HTML and CSS styling tricks to make one of those transparent and put deceptive elements over the real site. So you could have the visitor push a button that says, view next page or claim prize or some such thing, but really their click is going to the target page. Perhaps it's log in to bank or initiate transfer or some other action that they're not seeing in the user interface. So the first approaches at browser in the browser used those frames. But the problem with that was there was already an arms race between Clickjack and frame busting. So a collection of techniques to prevent abuse of frames by malicious actors. Microsoft servers reply using headers like xframe options deny and content security policy frame ancestors self. These mean that the browser won't load the legitimate page inside of that iframe, and the browser blocks the rendering of that login page. So the attack was not effective against major SSO providers. Well, Masri in 2024 presented this at B-Sides. He showed that he could do a browser in the browser attack framelessly. Not only that, but he could integrate it with the Adversary-in-the-Middle features of Evilginx and target SSO logins like Microsoft and Google. So his approach loaded the proxy login page directly inside of one window rather than inside an iframe. He's injecting HTML and CSS around the login form to make it look like a pop-up window floating over a background. Because it's loading inside one page and there's no iframe to bust, frame busting is not effective against Wells' technique. Combined with Evilginx's 3's support for JavaScript-based redirections injected directly into the HTML, this was a perfect combination.
Evilginx isn't so easy that it takes some skill to master, and you have to maintain your own servers to run it on.
It's not overly difficult, but it's nowhere near as simple as Phishing-as-a-Service toolkits and platforms we see sold today for $200 a month to anyone who can follow a few instructions on a Telegram channel. But with this new Evilginx feature rolled out, the underground market started selling fishlets. These are components that integrate with Evilginx that allow that frameless browser in the browser technique to target SSO providers. It wasn't until now, though, with the sneaky 2FA update, that we see browser in the browser functionality being rolled into a mainstream phishing-as-a-service platform. Raccoon was disrupted before they ever brought their kit to market. We saw demonstrations of their browser in the browser kit, but no one I know ever got a chance to get hands-on with that code and check out how it worked under the hood. A sneaky 2FA is a phishing-as-a-service platform that emerged in late 2024, but it didn't really gain recognition until it was described in an article by Sequoia in January 2025. Sequoia does great work. You should check out their blog. Like other man-in-the-middle phishing-as-a-service kits, this kit is intended to get that session token for an Office 365 login that can be used by an attacker to search an inbox using keywords like invoice, payment, cryptocurrency, find interesting conversations, follow up on those conversations by sending out fake invoices or other fake requests, and once those opportunities are used up, to use that mailbox to further the phishing operation by sending out phishing emails as that person, and that burns the mailbox. That's the typical business email compromise flow that we see. This new browser in the browser functionality of the sneaky 2FA kit has made the news after Dan Green at Push Security published an analysis of the new feature.
Time to go grab a sample from the wild and see what we get.
This is a sample of sneaky 2FA.
Another one for the sandbox.
We see the blurry background. That's a classic sneaky 2FA tactic. It's used by other threat actors, other kits as well.
It's a psychological trick, huh? There's my thing. I realized in my document. Can almost see it, but it's blurry. I need to complete this call to action. Kind of distract you from what you're actually doing because you really want to see it. Don't let them fool you. It's a trap.
We see the browser in the browser window pop up here. And you can see that the URL is a Microsoft URL, as we would expect it to be on a legitimate page. The proportions to me look a bit off, though. You can see that you can drag the pop-up window around inside of the real browser window, although you can't drag it past the real browser window. I realize it looks a bit goofy with the big red rectangle. For the public version of the demo, though, we want to respect privacy, so I'll pull up a couple examples of made-up email addresses and demonstrate. I worked with a couple excellent analysts on this demo, Ryan O'Leary and Martha Sosa, and we played around with different brands and different targets and different SSO providers that the kit can impersonate by rewriting the base 64 portion of the URL using a mix of real and made-up email addresses at different domains. And that demonstrates it's a man-in-the-middle attack. It's a reverse proxy.
Wait a minute, that's not right. The Okta page shouldn't have the Microsoft URL.
We see from the network logs that the site loads some obfuscated JavaScript. It's not that heavily obfuscated though. In fact, you can tell just by looking at it that it's doing something malicious.
Looks like alphabet soup. My buddy Quad can clean that up for us.
And let's see what we get here. It's doing what it sounded like it was doing before the deobfuscation. Really, it's blocking certain features that people might use to try to open the developer tools to inspect the source. Now, this isn't really an effective measure, but it's a really common measure on adversary-in-the-middle phishing kits, just to prevent people from casually taking a look at what's going on. This particular page has since been taken down. Unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to investigate this on a mobile device before the domain went down. And it seems like a lot of the sneaky 2FA phishing sites are no longer doing the browser functionality. The lure for this page redirects to the older sneaky 2FA kit.
That address bar shouldn't fool anyone.
Some people say that browser in the browser doesn't work too well on mobile devices. And as we know, mobile devices are more popular than ever for logins to email. A hypothesis I have is that those browser in the browser features weren't working too well on mobile devices, so maybe the kit has stopped using them. I'm not really sure why we're seeing those links that were browser in the browser directing to an older version of the kit. Maybe they found it just wasn't collecting credentials at the same rate as the old approach. Push Security has documented an ongoing phishing campaign using fake Calendly invites that leads to an adversary-in-the-middle kit with browser in the browser functionality on some of the deployments, but not others. Unfortunately, all of the samples I've seen of this Calendly attack in the wild so far, currently live samples even, are not using the browser in the browser functionality. They're just using the adversary-in-the-middle kit. If you're still seeing browser in the browser kits being deployed, or if you have some ideas why attackers would be going back to the older style of kits and abandoning browser in the browser, or maybe it's just what I'm seeing. Either way, if you have some insight, comment and let us know. Otherwise, until next time,
Keep following the chain.
Behind the surface, follow the chain from initial access to lasting pain. With detective lock, the signal's clear, breaking it down logically here. Process injection, deep in scripts, toolbox and cover, operator slips and play.